Hello and welcome to the 11th segment, Wonder Woman segment of the Maker Mom podcast. My name is Katie Freeman and I am your host. This week's episode is with Laura Kampf. That's right, the Laura Kampf. But before we hop on into the interview with Laura, I want to give a big shout out and thank you to the patrons over on Patreon. So thank you so much, Bonnie, Toolmom Bonnie of toolmomstore.com, Laura Oakley Soap Company, Mary Lou, Made by Mary Lou, Amy, Bison Valley Carving, Dan and Kelly, Reclaimed Living Store, Brandy, Studio Obey, Kathy, One Girl and Her Tools, Ellen, Little Bear Furniture, and Ethan Carter Designs. Thank you all so very much for your continued support of the podcast, helping to produce 2 episodes a week. All right, now make sure you stick around to the end of the episode so you can find out more about how you can get involved with the podcast. And with no further ado, because it's Laura Kampf, so we got to get to this interview. No further ado, here is Laura Kampf. Well, I'm sure probably everybody who listens/watches my podcast knows who you are, but I have my guests introduce themselves. So I'm going to let you do your own introduction.
All right. Are we rolling already? Is this?
We are.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, my name is Laura Kampf. I'm from Germany in Cologne, and I've been building stuff. Well, I started late, actually. So maybe with 27 or something, I started building things. And it just happened during my design school that I was tired of just figuring it out on a computer screen, and I wanted to do it properly. And then it everything fell into place, basically. So when I picked up my tools, or the first tools, I felt super familiar with it, and it felt like this is the language that I understand much more than trying to tell my computer program, no, I want this edge to be round. Don't you understand? This is how I got started making things. And I just kept doing it. And I eventually finished my design school. And then I had my first jobs, and I was super frustrated because I kept hearing that I am over motivated and that I should, calm down and take it slow. Your job will still be here tomorrow. And I hated that. And eventually I realized if people think I'm over motivated, I should probably work for myself. And that's how I got self-employed. My plan was originally to build and sell furniture, which is very tricky to do in Germany. And then I just slipped into the whole YouTube thing because that's actually where I learned everything, and where I got my inspiration, and where my heroes were, like Jimmy DeResta and all these guys. And then I started making a video, and then another one, and then another one, and I really liked it, and I'm still doing it now. I think it's 4 or 5 years later. I don't even know. Yeah.
That's awesome. So design school, were you going for like industrial design, furniture design, that type of stuff?
It's called communications design, and it's more about photography, illustration, video works, all these things. Yeah, it's a very, very broad design study. It's usually people do it to get into commercials and advertising and all these things. It's a broader graphic design with a communications background, so you understand how to tell stories and to sell, well, not sell products, but to explain visually what things are about, basically.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Let's go back a little bit. I want to learn a little bit more about like your childhood. I would assume you grew up in Germany,
Yeah.
but what were you kind of interested in as a kid?
I think I was all over the place. I was always very interested in things, but never had a big stamina to see things through. So I was very interested and very quick to be bored with stuff. And for the longest time, I thought that was like my biggest flaw, that I cannot focus on one thing. I want to play guitar. No, I want to play the drums. No, I want to sing. I want to ride a horse. I want to play football. I want all these things. And yeah, my father always kept telling me, like, you have to, like, eventually you will have to pick one thing, because you need to have this one thing that you can get good at. Otherwise, like, you will never have anything that you're good at if you continue quitting everything.
Right.
But now I kind of still do that. And I think the perspective for me is, yes, I get bored very easily, and I quit things, but I pick them up a lot later. If I need them again, I will pick them up again, and then all the things I learned about it, they're still handy. They're not lost. It's like riding a bicycle. So I think I'm just very quick to jump between disciplines and interests and music styles and all these things, but I never completely leave where I was before. And it just, I mean, it took time to understand that about myself, that this is not a flaw. That's actually a pretty cool asset, you know?
Mm-hmm. And I think that's pretty like descriptive of most people who consider themselves a maker too. Like,
Mm-hmm.
especially because you start thinking about the next project while you're still working on this project, and you get so excited about,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's learning a new thing or building a new thing or whatever that is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, and I know a lot of makers too who have like, attention deficit disorder and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Mm-hmm.
think it is an asset in this field. Like, it allows you to kind of bounce around, but still, like you said, be able to pick something back up, later on.
Exactly. It's just a matter of like I'm seeing the big picture. I'm seeing that through. I know what I want, and I know what I like, and I know how I want to live my life and all these things. But a lot of people have a tendency to zoom in so far that it completely gets out of proportion and out of
Mm-hmm.
perspective. And I always like to see the big picture. And it's really cool. I actually talked about this this week with a friend of mine. I've been building so many things and so many projects, especially since I started YouTube. I built something every week. At least I make a video every week, but there's so many more projects on the side
Mm-hmm.
that I don't even record. I built so much stuff. And only now I start to understand my own handwriting, because I skip all these disciplines, all these materials, and all these different products, that it just takes years to understand, oh, you know what? I think I really like plywood.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. When you were a kid, kind of, bouncing around, was there anybody in your life that showed you like that what you do now was even a possibility? Like, was
No.
that even not out
No,
there anywhere,
no,
right?
no. I don't, but I mean, to be fair, this job didn't exist
Hmm.
10 years ago. This is super new. I guess if I didn't have YouTube, I would be, people would call me a crazy person living amongst junk, and probably like a crazy inventor or something. That would probably be my title. But I'm just fortunate that social media and YouTube is there. It's
Hmm.
just really good timing. Because in Germany, I like building stuff. I don't like selling things. But in Germany, it's very tricky. You can't sell whatever you like
Hmm.
you have to be, well, the crafts are so important that they are very, very protected. So in order for me to build a chair and sell it, or to build a lamp and sell it, I have to be a master electrician, because if you set your house on fire, I will be responsible for that. And that's a very short explanation for a very,
Yeah.
very complicated topic. But even just thinking about that made me not want to get into it at all. I didn't want to. Yes, there are loopholes. Yes, there are ways around it. I don't care. I do not want to lose my sleep about these things. I just want to build
Mm-hmm.
stuff. And I am not necessarily interested in having my products be perfect, or I have this idea for a chair. It's terribly uncomfortable. That's fine. I just wanted to see if I could do it, and the next
Right.
chair will be better. Not, I will not build the next chair tomorrow, probably in 2 years, but then I have this learning from, oh yeah, it's not a good idea to have the backrest so low and all these things. I
Mm-hmm.
don't want a customer to be in the way. I don't want reliability be in the way, or just the pressure of everything having to be perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Consumers are so weird because the market is so weird.
Right. Yeah.
How can you compete with all these choices and the prices and all that stuff? I don't even want to get in that
Mm-hmm.
field.
Yeah, in the US, like it's not necessarily like your example with the lamp to be an electrician. That's not necessarily the case, but I can tell you as somebody who like I make furniture and more artistic pieces,
Hmm.
but I can't get insurance for my
Mm.
company
Hmm.
because nobody wants to insure a furniture making company because there's high liability in it.
Yeah.
If that
You're much braver than me then. I applaud you for doing that.
However, you're probably much more successful financially than I am, so
Well,
you probably went the better route. Um, how did you, I mean, did you discover kind of the whole YouTube thing? Because like you mentioned, like Jimmy DiResta, like were you already like following along with him on YouTube and others, in the space, or like what got your attention about like this is something I could do?
it took me super long to find the community aspect in YouTube. For me, it was more like Googling stuff. I remember I was when before streaming stuff, when you have to BitTorrent things if you wanted
Mm-hmm.
to see them. I stumbled over a show called Trash to Cash, or what was the Jimmy DiResta? I think it was Trash to
Yeah,
Cash.
yeah.
And it was just a title. I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. I just started building stuff and getting into it. So I downloaded that and I was like, oh, wow, that guy is so cool. But it took me years to understand, like, okay, yeah, I Googled something and then I came across this YouTube video and there was this other guy who was really cool. And then eventually, like, oh, is that the same guy? So it fell into place very, very slow. And I actually have a moment. When I was in my first job and I started a blog to write about the things
Mm-hmm.
that I built. And I wanted to pick a name for the blog. And I was actually looking up cool names and I had like Dios Ex Machina, but oh shit, that's a motorcycle brand. I can't use that. I tried all these different things. I like to make stuff like, oh man, that's taken too. Like what? And then years later I met Bob and I don't know, it's just so funny. There were so many opportunities for me to get in contact with the community, but I never did. I always like scratched it and then went another way. But yeah, I was just comfortable with YouTube as a learning platform. And
Mm-hmm.
then once I realized, oh, that's the same people, and then it really was Jimmy, and thinking like, oh, that's the guy from the show. Oh no, he has a channel. And then I realized that you could subscribe and that he does like regular content. And then I researched a little bit and they just started the Making It podcast. I think it was like the second episode when I started listening to it. And it was religious for me. I listened to that podcast over and over and over until the next episode came, and I listened to that episode over and over because it was right in the time where I quit my job and I decided to be self-employed. And all these topics were exactly what interests me. And it was so good. I had this teeny tiny cheap MP3 player where you can
Yeah.
download stuff to it, and then I only had Making It episodes on it, and I would listen to it in my shop. It was weird. But that's how I realized, okay, so there's not a production company behind all these makers. They do it by themselves. maybe I should do this. I actually have a background in TV. Like, why am I not doing this? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And that's how that's how I ended up making my first video.
Nice. Nice. So, okay, so that's how you kind of got started making your first YouTube. And yeah, it is interesting. I mean, when you explained what your design degree was about, it's like a natural fit, right, of making and storytelling. And like I said, I mean, I've been watching your videos for a while, but how long did you go with not doing any speaking during the video process?
I eventually started making vlogs. But I didn't really like it that much. It was actually, I think it was, I don't even know why that happened, but YouTube asked me if I wanted to explore. Oh no, that was live streaming. Sorry, I missed that. Mixed that up.
Mm-hmm.
No, I started doing vlogs. I don't know why. I watched a lot of Casey Neistat and I liked the style, and I do still feel that parts of what I think is very, very interesting about building stuff is not reflected in the videos. Probably the stuff that I enjoy the most, like the figuring out and having the idea and running through the shop like a crazy person, like, I think I have this thing somewhere here. Where is it? Where is it? And I never managed to capture that. I think my vlogs were an attempt at a bit behind the scenes and also to demystify all of this, because I remembered that I didn't like, I thought every YouTuber is a freaking superstar, and
Right.
and that is out of reach, you know. And I think that was a cool thing to show, like, no, it's there's no superstars. It's just regular people doing regular stuff, failing, struggling. I never cried in a vlog, but I do cry in the shop. But
I understand that.
Yeah, but I don't know, talking to camera is weird still. I don't think it's my natural way to tell a story. I much rather just show it with pictures. So I stopped doing the vlogs and I started doing the live streams, which is also super weird, but it's more like a monologue and I get a little bit of feedback. I get the comments and there's a little bit of interaction versus me. Like, I make a 10-minute video and I don't even know if anybody's interested in this. So it feels weird.
I watched your whole tiny house series.
Oh,
and so,
yeah.
Which I thought was really cool. It won't happen for years, but it's been on my kind of bucket list for a really long time, that's something, either that or like a bus conversion, something along that line that I really want to do. But I appreciated that you did kind of step in at parts during that series to like do a little bit more explaining. Was it just because you felt like the project was so big you needed to add that?
Yeah, it's much quicker. I think people think it's easier to not talk, but it's so much more work to explain something visually than to just say, you just cut it in half, you know?
Right.
So with these projects, also if it's stuff that I have to do research myself, where I'm not very comfortable with, I had to look this up. I don't even know how insulation worked until I started this project. And what I found out is that you have to watch out for these things. That's easier for me to speak about. Yeah. So sometimes talking, I never like it. Sometimes I feel it's necessary. Also with the tiny camper that I'm building on and off right now, there's so many things that I just can't explain visually, and yeah, it's stuff that I just recently learned. So I think it feels good to share it. And that's another thing, like the behind the scenes, why I chose aluminum, because it reminds me of a Rimowa suitcase, and it's all about nostalgia basically. Which, by the way, because I was so motivated about this project, and now the last couple of weeks I'm like, oh no, the camper. I actually I had the owner of Festool. She's a woman, which is super awesome. Yeah. And I had her over 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, and I asked her, like, do you want to set the camper on fire and we just make a video about that? This would be a viral video if it says like Festool owner sets camper on fire. But yeah, I completely lost interest. And now, because I took a couple of days off and I stepped away from it, I know why, because the whole project for me was to channel my excitement. Yes, it's spring, camping season is about to start. Oh my God. And then building this camper gave me hours and days and weeks of time where I can just dream about camping and how would I do it and how would I build the kitchen and how do I want it to look. And then camping season came, it was summer and I want to go camping. I don't want to build a camper. So
yeah, that makes total sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I finally understood why I lost interest. And I think that's cool, because the summer will be over in a couple of weeks. And then I have a reason to think about living outside, sleeping outside, cooking outside, all these things when I finish the camper.
There you go.
Yeah.
So I have to go back and ask more about the owner of Festool being a woman. And the reason is because I've talked with other makers on this podcast specifically about Festool, and we were talking about like how if you go through the catalogs or through their Instagram account,
No girls.
like, no girls.
No girls. I know. And she knows too. And man, I can tell you, it is very, very difficult. The thing is, like, I always thought the whole feminist approach, it's all like, it's not necessary. Like, if you want to do it, just do it. Don't let anybody tell you blah, blah, blah. Until I started my own business and until I, grew up. And I think I was always very naive and thought if people are assholes to me, it's because they're assholes. It's not because I'm a girl. But then comes a point where you realize, oh man, he's really nice to my friend. What is going on? And it was a shock to me. And the whole male-dominated industry which we are in, it is so difficult to change it. It has to happen. Like, we have to make changes because it's not going in a good direction. But it's very difficult because my experiences is whenever I talk about these things, like why is that? Like, why am I not taken serious? Why is it that if I have a good idea that I want to push through, I am a diva, but if my male colleague has a good idea, he gets paid double the amount? Like, why is that happening? And the conversation always gets shut up with, oh yeah, I mean, she's very emotional and that's her thing, and she's an artist and that's how she is. And I think, no, you know what? You guys are emotional, because I'm trying to see this from I have the overview and I'm just pointing out the facts. And you're being emotional, but because you're afraid that I'm taking anything from you. I don't want your shit, Oh my God!
No, I know.
On a topic there.
No, but I mean, I appreciate you going that far with it, because I mean, another reason specifically, and I'm really not trying to pick like on Festool specifically, but I also had a conversation around the fact of no people of color being part of that catalog. In fact, when you go through their Instagram feed, the only woman that is on there happens to also be a woman of color.
So they tried to do like, let's do it once and then just cover all of it.
I guess
she's in a wheelchair as well. Can she?
Yeah. So, and that's who I actually happen to have on the podcast. Her name is Alma.
Okay.
She was on
Alma from Pink Soul. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh yeah, she's awesome.
She is. And we were talking about, she was on a podcast where we were talking about people of color in the maker space and how a light needs to be shown on more of them, because there are more people of color who are makers for sure. But we got on the topic about Festool specifically, or really a lot of the tool brands, there's still a lot of their publications still tend to show like the sexy model holding like the tool versus someone actually using it.
It's a nightmare. Yeah. I have obviously very big issues with that. And I try to make a change. And I think the only way to change that is to be visible and to be good, to show what we can do. Like, we all have to stick together. We all have to elevate each other. And then there has, like, the conversation with these companies. Sometimes I feel like they don't really know, they don't know. They don't even know that that's an issue. Just like I'm not as sensitive as there are no colored people or people of color in the catalog. I'm not as sensitive to that because I'm white, right? I noticed there are no girls. So those people making decisions, even though the owner is a really awesome woman, there are so many men there who don't have a clue that this is something that is relevant because they see themselves represented. They don't know where the issue is. Like, it's cool, like cool pictures, cool, like,
All right, I'm super excited for this week's sponsor. This week's sponsor is Tool Mom Bonnie, or Tool Mom and Company. So Tool Mom and Company is for all ages, genders. They have what you need for your one-stop tool-related merchandise of gifts or clothing or both. Her products are fun, fashionable, one of a kind. And you can check her out at www.toolmomstore.com or find her on Instagram under Tool Mom Bonnie, and Bonnie's Bonnie. You can receive an extra 20% off at checkout by using the coupon code MakerMom. So I have 2 of her mugs. I have one that says, I believe, what is it? Oh my gosh. One is like the definition of a tool woman, and the other one is just like a circular saw with flames coming off of it, and I believe it says Go Girl on it, and they're super fun mugs. I love drinking coffee out of them in the morning. If it's not out of my Wonder Woman mug, it is out of one of those 2 mugs. So you definitely should at least check out the mugs, if nothing else. And remember, extra 20% off at checkout by using the code MakerMom. All right, thank you, Tool Mom Bonnie, and let's get back to the episode. Well, yeah, I mean, I think, and I've said this before on the podcast, so I apologize to those who listen to my podcast and have heard this before, but I've heard men, especially in another podcast, talk about, what's the big deal? Why do you even have to say you're a woman maker? Like, we don't make things with our genitals. I'm like, exactly, we don't make things with our genitals. However, I need to be visible so that the little girl who happens to stumble across my YouTube channel can understand that she can do this.
Yes.
Like, that there's no barrier to her to be able to do this.
Yes. Absolutely. It's all about representation and visibility. And I can understand that somebody who is very well represented never thought about that.
Right. So, I mean, when you, like, at what point did you kind of, like you said, you've met Bob and you've met Jimmy too, I would assume. I think I've seen pictures. Yeah. So, like, when did you get that chance to, like, really kind of tap into the community of the maker community?
The one thing that's very, very cool about the maker community is that they love the underdogs. I think it's very easy to get into it if you show what you do and if you show, interest in what other people are doing. The community loves to discover new people or new talent or new style or anything. So I think my most successful time emotionally were the first, I don't know, 1.5 years on YouTube. When I went to a fair, like, people would wear my shirts everywhere and ask for stickers. I'm like, that's really awesome. I love that about the community. And then it's time, for new people, the newcomers, the new underdogs. And then and then you kind of retire from that status, and then you move on, and then there's the Jimmy status, which is the godfather, and you will never reach that. So that's the pyramid of the maker community. So it's very, very welcoming and easy to get a foot in the door. Yeah, I think the one thing that the maker community doesn't like is empty words. Oh yeah, I really want to do this, I really want to do that, and you never do anything. It's not so interesting. But if you keep your word, and if you show up and do the work, and show your projects, because everybody who makes stuff knows how difficult or how hard it can be to show your projects. It's every time I upload a video, still it feels like I'm standing naked on a table, and people are there to judge my ideas, and to judge my craftsmanship. It's always exciting, and the people understand that, and they appreciate the effort, and they appreciate sorry, now my dog is barking.
That's okay.
They appreciate the effort. So it's very easy. If anybody who listens thinks about doing something, do it. You will not regret this. Smudo, ist jetzt mal gut, ja? Geh mal hier Hundebett. Yeah, he's been outside all day, and Hey, Schluss jetzt.
Okay, so I want to merge kind of the two conversations then. Like, when you started meeting, some of these people you really admired in the making space. I mean, I've met Bob and Jimmy as well and stuff, and they're, super nice and super friendly and open to having conversations and talking about ideas and stuff. Did you ever have this conversation though about kind of like the representation in the space?
No, actually not. I have this conversation, or had this plenty of times with Simone Yetch. And she's one of the people who made me super aware of all of these things, because as I said before, like I was very naive for a long time, thinking, oh, that's just assholes. But am I allowed to swear so much? I usually don't swear so much. I don't know what's wrong.
No, you're okay. On these on my regular not my regular, but I have 2 episodes a week. I have this Wonder Women episode, where I interview women such as yourself, who may or may not be mothers, and I kind of let it all go out the window. Then I feel like we're more grown-ups, and I put explicit on these ones. But usually the mom interviews, we tend to kind of dial it back a notch, just because usually they have kiddos who want to listen to their interview and all that good stuff.
Okay.
But anyways, yes, you can swear. It's no problem.
Great. Yeah, no, I didn't have the conversation a lot. A couple years ago, was it 2 years ago, one year ago? I don't even know. I don't want to be too specific, because I don't want to, but I was working with a sponsor, and it was great. We were getting along perfectly. And then it was time to renew my contract. It's usually I make contracts for a year, and then, you see what's up, and hopefully increase the fee and all these things. And then a friend of mine was like, yeah, I signed with them too. It's like, oh, fantastic, cool. And we all talk about the prices. And I think that's important, because, we're friends. We should keep this an open conversation, and not about competition and, oh yeah, I tricked them, and I make more money than, I'm not interested in that. I'm all for transparency. So my friend told me, like, oh yeah, I make this much. And I was like, that is double from what I make. That is double. So I was like, all right, cool. I mean, good for him. Yeah. I now know what to ask for in my negotiation. And I got into the negotiation. I was like, I mean, we don't have to talk about this, because I know what he's making. And like, this should be I want to ask for more, but I was being nice. Like, I want to ask for more than that, because it's my second year, but I don't want competition with him. So let's just keep it even. That's fine with me. And they were like, probably not. And I was like, all right, probably not. Fuck you. And then, so yeah, I went to a different company, which is way better.
Well, that's good. I mean, I'm glad you guys do talk pricing.
Yeah, but
I mean, it can be a touchy subject,
yeah,
right?
it can be, especially if stuff like that comes up, you know. But to make a point, that I told the company I was very happy with your product. I love everything about it. But do you realize what you are doing there? Do you understand what is happening? And they're like, oh, I mean, to be honest, we didn't think about it. And he was like so good at negotiating. It's like, yes, I understand, but you know my product, you know? I don't think like I have to, it shouldn't be about negotiation. It should be about delivery, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I always hated that in design school as well. You know, people just like talking their way through and being so convincing that like, oh yeah, it's really good. It's actually really good. No, it's not. Look at the, you know?
Well, I mean,
So,
but that even brings up an interesting point. That's actually more direct than I've ever gotten in my podcast. I appreciate that because almost every woman I talk to says that they want to let their work speak for itself, right?
yes.
That's why they're worth XYZ because their work is so good. And I appreciate that. But every time I get that answer, what I think in the back of my head is, I don't think that's the way the men think.
It's
I think the
exactly.
men think I will try to get as much as I can get, and then whatever it is, I'm clearly worth it. Like, I
Yes,
don't think they
yes.
ever questioned their worth.
No, absolutely not. And that's another thing. Like, I think women have a much more a tendency to be imposters. I'm a
Mm-hmm.
big imposter, and I love that. I love that because I think that brings a very, very high sensibility to my view on my own work, that I
Mm-hmm.
rather question it than to be like, oh man, I mean, I've been successful on YouTube for many, many years, so this must be good, you know? I'd rather doubt myself. I'd rather
Right.
double check my work and think like, oh my God, I think this video is shit. Like I need to work on this more. I think that's very important. I love my imposter syndrome. It just keeps me in check. I mean, I emotionally, it sometimes breaks me, but I'd rather have it this way than, you know, I'm clearly
Mm-hmm.
worth it. Everybody knows this. I mean, the problem is the, it's like men talking to men, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that my experience, and I don't know why that is that sometimes if women make it in that world, they get so hard and so tough that
Mm-hmm.
they adapt these things and they adapt the same behavior. And I think that is where we need to make change, is that
Right.
we stick together not as a hysteria, I'm missing the word,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
divas, like we
Right.
demand blah blah, but just like you need to get the system from the inside. We need to stick together in the inside. Like we need, oh, there's a lady in a power position, there's a lady in a power position, that is fantastic, let's make sure
Right.
they feel good, like let's make sure that we support each other.
Right.
And I've met many women who are like dicks, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Now that I know I can swear, I'm really taking advantage of
It's
it.
gonna that's all good. But I think that's a valuable point because that's also something I talked about with Alma on that one episode. We were kind of debriefing. It was it was shortly after Workbench Con.
Hmm.
And so we were talking, and basically I had three women of color. Alma was one of them, and all of them said that there was some fear level that they just stopped them from even like going up and starting to have a conversation with brands. And
Hmm.
I said, I don't think you should put that on yourself totally,
Hmm.
that you're not brave enough or whatever. I said, but also think about who was at those tables. It was all
Hmm.
men. And to your
Hmm.
point, like, I think that creates the barrier. I would like to see brands recognize that, hey, maybe we should like at least bring a woman colleague with us to the
Yeah.
table at these
Yes.
places,
Yes.
where more people are there. Because I said, I can guarantee you there were men there who have no more than, that probably don't even have 1,000 followers, that were
Hmm.
walking up to brands and talking the game and walking the
Yeah.
walk and saying, you need to work with me. And they got those deals. And that brand's missing out because they're missing out on you. Like we bring a unique perspective to a lot of these things.
Yes.
And there are a lot of women makers out there who would love to see us.
Yes. I mean, it's a vicious circle,
Right.
Not being represented, not feeling you have somebody that you can identify with, and that might not, that might lead you to not starting to begin with. I had this really cool moment last summer. I have this old shirt that I got on a Christopher Street Day or something. It says "Gay Okay," and I sometimes wear it because it's just like a super comfortable shirt, but I never think about it. So I went to a supermarket in the town that I just moved into with my workshop, and it's very, very rural. What a very hard word to say. It's rural here. So I for some reason I was very aware of wearing that shirt because, well, for some reason everybody was staring at me. And I was walking through the supermarket with, I think it was Brad from Skull and Spade, and with Hassan from Habu, and we were working, just chatting, and there were this one girl, I think she was maybe like 12 or 13, and I kind of got the like, I think you're one of us vibe. And she saw the shirt and her jaw just dropped. And I was like, that is such a good moment for her. That is so good for her to see that in this stinking town, like where nobody is diverse in any way, that she saw somebody wearing that shirt and not being different. I was there with the guys shopping, just, buying some stuff, not doing a big demonstration, not accusing anybody of anything, not making a point, just like being there. And that really changed my perspective, and that made me understand a lot of comments that I get, like, oh, it's so important for me what you guys are doing on YouTube. I understand that from my own perspective, because it's very important for me what Simone does on YouTube or what Jimmy does on YouTube, but I never understood it why they would say it to me. Now I understand, because there are not a lot of ladies doing it, and that's a vicious circle. So makers make more makers, and more female makers make more female makers.
Right, exactly.
That's how it works.
That's right. I know that I guess I've heard you and April have kept lists before of some of the comments that you guys get on YouTube. And I can only imagine, but I bring that up because this kind of speaks to the same thing of, to be honest, I don't listen to many maker podcasts anymore. I've kind of gotten out of that circuit of podcasts. But when I was listening, I remember, hearing some of the feedback like Ben Ueda would get and stuff, and he'd first get so mad about someone saying something about his idea or how to do it or whatever. And
speaking of emotional, right?
And I would just think to myself, I said, yeah, but have you ever had somebody like, see, it's my turn to cuss. Have you ever had somebody call you a fat cunt on YouTube? Because I have. I mean, or or my cuts are straighter than I am, which I'm kind of like, well, duh. But,
That's actually a good one.
I know. I was like, I should get that on a shirt or something. But
exactly. Yes, that would be a great shirt.
But it is to that point of like, it kind of almost bugs me that they're in the same making space and they don't see some of the stuff that women makers have to put up with, when especially like you or April, or Simone, who are big on YouTube. I'm tiny. So I still get comments and I'm tiny. I'm like, I can't imagine being you guys.
Well, no, the comments don't hurt more when you get bigger. I think especially the first one. So you can absolutely speak for that. I remember the first negative comments I got that were like nasty, really nasty, where I started thinking like, there has to be a way to protect myself from this. Otherwise I will not continue. I will not do this. Especially in the beginning, I was with the time difference, I would wake up in the middle of the night, oh, I wonder how my video is doing. And then you lay in your bed, like you just woke up, and then you read like some, and that's the thing, like, I don't even want to repeat it, I don't even want to talk about And I don't know why that is. And I think sometimes we should say these things to make the guys understand, like, that's a different level of negativity. Because
Right.
I know exactly what you mean, and I like Ben, and he has great
does,
concepts
yeah.
and all these things.
Yep.
Like, he's a great maker, but he has not seen the negativity. And a comment that says like, "Oh, your idea is dumb," and it
Right.
looks wonky,
Yeah.
is like, that's not even a bad comment, man.
I
You know?
I know. I do think sometimes when I see, because I've recently got onto TikTok and I've been having, some success on
Mm-hmm.
TikTok. And
Mm-hmm.
at first everything was super positive over there, but eventually, like for whatever reason, some of the ones that have taken off, like me chainsawing a log,
Mm-hmm.
it's all guys commenting and all about how I look, what I'm wearing, that there's no possible way that I'm really cutting wood. They even thought that it was like styrofoam for it to be that straight. And I'm like, are you serious? Like, I mean, and I just think like, man, I would really love a comment that just says I'm doing it wrong. Like
Mm-hmm.
I would just,
Mm-hmm.
like
Yes.
that
Yeah.
I totally would brush
Yes.
off.
Exactly. And that's also something that you can reply to, but there's
Mhm.
no way that I can reply to rape threats
Right.
without, it's like the saying, when you argue with an idiot from the far, nobody will be able to tell who's the idiot, right? And
Right.
that's like these comments. What am I supposed to say to that,
Right.
But if somebody says like, "Oh, I think your saw blade is a little bit dull, otherwise your wood wouldn't burn," it's like, "Oh yeah, you know what? You might be right."
Right, exactly.
Explain that. Yeah, there's a
Exactly.
difference. But there's also like two things. Have you seen the movie 8 Mile
Yeah.
with Eminem?
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that scene where at the end he's like, "Blah blah, I know everything,
Yep.
everything that you could possibly say about me," and
Oh
that's
yeah.
how I feel like I am bulletproof by now. And that's a good
I've
thing.
actually quoted that in an Instagram
Really
post. I did that last part,
nice.
because I think about that too. And in
Yeah,
fact, in that post, I just laid it out. I'm like, I am queer. I am
yeah,
fat.
yeah.
I'm like, I
That's
am all these things.
yeah,
Tell me something I don't know about myself.
yes, yes,
Like
yes, yes. That's
you
awesome.
can't, you
Oh
can't
man.
beat me up any more than I've
Yep,
already done
yeah.
it. So yeah.
And I think this is something that we have a head start on that when you compare it to the guys, because men never have to question themselves that much. They never get attacked like this.
Right.
And that's actually in a business situation that I had a couple weeks ago. It was like the same thing as always, like, wow, we have to make change, but there are all these old white male,
Yeah.
they will not accept any change at all because they're afraid that something gets taken away from them.
Right.
And I was like, if you ever need somebody who doesn't give a shit if the whole room hates them, please call me. Please call me, because I couldn't care less if I'm sitting
Right.
in front of a board of 20 people and they all disagree with me. I do that every day on YouTube, I can handle that.
So I mean, I'm asking, actually kind of just for myself too, but like how how do you get to that point where it stopped stinging, where you stopped like giving a crap what they were saying?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably just a matter of repetition. You get numb to it.
Yeah.
And then it's also, I mean, the negative things are so much louder than the positive ones, but the quantity of the positive feedback is so much bigger, right? And
Mhm.
little situations like that situation with the girl and the gay okay shirt, that makes up for so much, because
Mhm.
I don't know, that's something that gives me so much energy and so much hope
Mhm.
and motivates me. And this whole, the negativity or the threats and all that stuff, it I have this policy that says no assholes in my life. And that's also for negativity in comments, negativity in family, negativity in relationships. I am not having that. I worked so hard to have the dream job, like a job that I love. I love everything
Mhm.
about it. I'm not going to let them ruin this for me, because I enjoy every second of every workday. So, you know, they should not have power, and
Right.
it just stopped being powerful.
Hmm.
It's annoying, and I have to delete it. And, you
Yeah.
know, but then again, it's like, you know what? I should maybe just hire somebody to delete your stupid comments, you know?
Right. To
I
read
don't
these
know.
things and delete them.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
then again, it's not worth it. I'd rather pay somebody to do something nice, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
And not have
Exactly.
like a hate manager.
Do you think there's room for, especially, and again, I'm not meaning to call out in a negative way, but especially for, like, say, the godfather of the
Mhm.
maker community, to, I mean, he leads by example a ton, but do you
Mhm.
think there's room for, or necessity for, some of them to come forward and just flat out say, this isn't cool? Like,
I
people like
think
this are not cool.
I know yes, I know what you mean, but I think it would make it worse. It's
Okay.
like you have a fight on your
Yeah.
schoolyard, and then your
Yeah.
mom shows up and says like, cut it out, you know. Then you're automatically lost, and you will
Right.
never ever win that battle ever.
Right.
um, yeah.
It's just, I especially the type of, stuff I listen to and read now as ways of educating myself. Um, it's just kind of been sinking in more and more that perhaps it's not nice enough, or it's not good enough anymore for someone who's male to just be a good guy in himself.
Hmm.
Perhaps it needs to go further, especially because I'm not talking about like blatant things that are said that are horrible, but things that are like grazingly not okay, that are like,
Hmm.
they just don't understand how that could be bad. For
Hmm.
example, the person who said we don't make things with our genitals, he actually didn't
Hmm.
mean that in a bad way at all. He was trying to say,
Hmm.
let our work stand for our work. And I get that.
Yeah.
But if the males around him don't take a second to say, that actually wasn't cool, like, that
Hmm.
actually says this to a woman who
Yeah.
could be listening to this podcast, like, I guess it's just, I think it's time that some of the guys, the good guys, step up
Hmm.
and say, like, hey, your behavior reflects bad on me as a male. I
Hmm.
don't want
Hmm.
that. So
Yeah,
therefore,
that's
like, a male to male kind of conversation.
yeah, that's an interesting perspective. I think, I don't know. I don't know, to be honest. I think that everybody has to decide that for
Hmm.
themselves. And I would think, but that's probably a more sensible perspective. I would think that hearing Jimmy talk for 5 minutes, every guy would understand like that stuff doesn't fly here. I
Hmm.
should not do that, because he's very respectful. And
Right.
but yeah, but that's probably like an asset that we have as girls, and not so much, you know. Yeah, but that's another thing that I noticed during the because of the Black Lives Matter riots. I heard a bunch of podcasts, and people were like, "Oh my God, I cannot believe how many followers I lost because of this, and this is crazy." And I got so much, I had to turn off the comments, and I was like, "I was fine." You know, I posted stuff. I was fine. You know why? Because I sorted the assholes out a long, long time ago. I sorted them out whenever I post something gay related. I
Right.
sorted them out because I'm a girl. Some took a little longer to see that. I still get comments like, "What?" And then I always feel a little bit like a wolf's in a sheep clothing. Like, yeah, I'm a girl, and I built that, and you liked it until you understood that I was a girl.
Girl.
um, so maybe that would be interesting, an interesting perspective to talk to the guys about. It's like, it's a good thing that you lose followers. You don't want them. We don't want
Right.
them. We don't want them in our filter bubble. We don't want them in the community. They should not feel welcome. And maybe that would lead to them like thinking, what changed? What did change? Like I was fine with everybody. Now I posted a Trump sticker and everybody left. Like what happened? You know, maybe they would think about
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't know.
absolutely.
It's yeah, I don't know. It's difficult. I think a lot of people are thinking about these issues and how to solve them. And that's a good start, to be
Hmm.
aware and to do your thing.
Yeah.
But also with like I'm super confident in being gay. I never made a secret out of that, but this is not my number one topic, you know. I think
Right.
it's such a thin line. Yes, I'm gay. Yes, I'm a girl. I don't know, but I build stuff, and it's sometimes hard for me to like, should I have a giant rainbow flag in my shop, or would that take away from would that also shut up the conversation where it goes like, oh, she's gay, you know, I don't like her, she's gay. Maybe let's like get them to watch and then maybe open up and then maybe, you know, understand, oh man, she's, oh, god damn it, she's gay, but she's, you know, she's really good. And maybe they rethink about it. I don't know, like there are a million ways to look at this, but I have no solution, unfortunately.
Well, darn it, I thought you might have all the answers.
Yeah, I mean,
Well,
what do you think about it, just to
I think yeah, to your point, I mean, actually for a while, especially around being gay, I don't want to say I outright hid it, but I definitely was not like really out.
mm-hmm,
I talked about my kiddos, but I never talked about my wife.
mm-hmm,
And it actually took her kind of stepping up and saying, this kind of hurts. Like, I'm a
mm-hmm,
big part of your life and nobody knows that I exist, you know? And I
yeah,
was like,
yeah,
oh, yeah, you know? And
mm-hmm,
so I actually had kind of like a big, I won't say it big, but a coming out post type thing where I posted my whole family. And I lost a couple of followers, you
mm-hmm. That's
know?
good, that's
And
good,
then
you
I,
don't want those.
yeah. And then I had a few people say, like, what's it matter? Why did you feel like you even had to share? And so then I had to, again, inform them,
Mm-hmm.
like, representation matters.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, it does. It does. And I think that's the bottom line. And I'm working on the festival catalog too. Like I want this to change. Because that's the little world that we are in where that stuff just matters, you know, it matters. So
yeah, exactly. All right. Well, we're at the end of our time.
yeah.
So thanks for chatting with me.
Sure.
And again, if for whatever reason, if somebody just moved here from like Mars and doesn't know who you are, how can they find you on social media?
I think the best way is to Google Laura Kampf, Kampf, and then you will find my YouTube and my Insta. That's where I'm most active. Yeah. If you happen to be German, then I have a podcast called Rabe and Kampf. So you can check that
Nice.
out too. Yeah, but it's in German.
I don't speak German or understand it. So yeah, I'm out of that totally. What's the pod? What do you talk about on the podcast?
About being self-employed. She's my friend that I do it with. She is a best-selling author. We actually went to the same school. It's really cool. And she's a woman of color, so that's really nice to get her perspective. It makes me a little bit more sensitive for all of these topics. And yeah, so she's a writer. I'm a maker. We're both self-employed in a creative field, and that's what we usually talk about.
Awesome.
Thanks for having me. Take care.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
All right, so again, that was the Laura Kampf. And if you're not already following along with her on YouTube or Instagram, I will include the links on how you can follow along with her in the show notes, which you can find. If you're watching this on YouTube, it will be down in the description. Or if you are listening to the audio of this episode, you can go to freemanfurnishings.com/podcast and find this week's episode along with all the previous episodes to follow along with all of those amazing female makers. All right, if you enjoyed this episode or enjoying the podcast, you can do something that is super simple, doesn't cost you anything to help support the podcast, and that is to make sure that you subscribe. So whatever you're listening to this on, or watching this on, please hit that subscribe button. And then if you can, head on over to iTunes, leave a 5-star review for the Maker Mom podcast. Or if you're watching this on YouTube, just leave a comment down below, hit that like button. All of that helps all of those platforms, algorithms, get more people to discover the podcast and find out about all of these amazing makers and their stories. Now, if you really want to get into the action, then you can go over to Patreon to join the tribe, and that's just patreon.com/Maker Mom Podcast. And there's several different tier levels you can join over there. There's a $1, $3, and $5 tier level that has different merchandise associated with it, and all of it gets you access to any additional content, which includes, coming up in just a couple of weeks, the first ever live recording of an episode. If you're a patron, you will have access to participating and watching that happen via Zoom live before anybody else has access to that episode. There's also a brand new $30 tier level with very limited spots that makes you an official sponsor of the podcast and get your own ad spot within every episode through the whole month, which is a minimum of 8 episodes a month. So if you think you might be interested in that, check that out quickly because it has very few spots available for that. All right. And then you can just simply purchase some merchandise if you don't really want to get into Patreon. And the best place to find that merchandise is to go to freemanfurnishings.com/shop. And there's the Maker Mom Podcast tee with currently Mom Squad listed on the back with the first 65 episodes of the Maker Mom Podcast. And that's going to be changing soon because we're getting close to the end of the year and it's going to be updated. We're also getting close to the 100th episode of the original Maker Mom Podcast interviews that happened on Friday. So if you want to rock a t-shirt with the original, the OG crew of the Mom Squad, then you want to get that t-shirt soon. All right. So when I'm not making a podcast, which trust me, 2 episodes a week means I'm doing that quite frequently. When I'm not making a podcast, then I am running and designing and making furniture and sharing that content over on freemanfurnishings.com or at Freeman Furnishings across all of the platforms like Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, all of it. So you can check me out over there. All right, it's hump day. Have a great rest of your week, and I will see you next week with a brand new interview.